Please welcome to the stage, Nalie.
First of all, I have to say that it is an honor to be in the presence of such brilliant minds and compassionate souls. So before I start, I have to say thank you. Thank you for your crazy amount of studies, the crazy amount of workload, those sleepless nights, those early mornings and skipped holidays with friends and family. Basically, thank you so much for every sacrifice that you have made to dedicate your entire life to saving those like mine. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for choosing this path. What you just watched was a compilation of the many videos that I recorded to document my entire journey ever since I was diagnosed with breast cancer at just 24 years old. Stage 2, ER/PR positive, HER2 negative, back in 2013. I posted those videos because there wasn't that many information out there for young women. So in sharing my stories, I built this big, beautiful community of thrivers. And a cancer thriver to me basically means anyone who's willing to live beyond the limitations of their diagnosis. So who chooses faith and gratitude over fear and lives their best life to the absolute fullest. This is how I choose to live my life every day, even after I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer since 2017. I will never forget that day. A stubborn cough and shortness of breath brought me to the hospital, where I was then accompanied by my mom, my dad, my boyfriend, and my big brother, and we waited anxiously for hours for my then oncologist to storm into the room and abruptly announce that both my lungs were now filled with cancer. Too many lesions to count, and this time he added, "It's incurable." I remember falling onto my mom's lap and crying like I was a baby again. My first thought was, I guess I'm gonna die. I even asked my mom, I'm like, "Mom, am I gonna die?" Because the way it was announced to me, I thought my life was over right there and then in that room. And then my second thought was, how am I gonna announce this to my big community of thrivers? You see, I was in remission for about 3 years before the recurrence. They turned to my story for hope. I thought I was gonna be a big disappointment. So I wanted to dig a hole and just hide. I did do that for about a week or two. But then something bigger than me made me feel like I should share my story once again. So, as usual, took out my camera, recorded a video, announced the recurrence, and decided to post it online. And I'm glad I did. Because shortly after that, I received an outpour of now other women sharing their stories with me. Many of them were also diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, but they had been living and thriving with the disease for over 5 years. Some were even NED, no evidence of the disease. And believe it or not, some were even in remission, completely, fully, totally healed. So then I was like, wait a minute. Does this mean that MBC is not necessarily a death sentence? I wish I had known that from the start. Because just knowing of that possibility, it got me right back up and going again. So I restarted chemotherapy, and thankfully the lung nodules shrunk significantly, and then I moved on to hormonal therapy. But now knowing that there were many women living and thriving with MBC, I began to question, what are these people doing? Who are their doctors? What are their treatments? What are they eating? What are they thinking? How are they sleeping? Someone tell me their secret, please. And that's when my quest to healing truly began. In fact, that's when I turned my whole life around. I started to nourish my mind, my body, my soul, and then I started feeling healthier than I ever did even before cancer, but I'll save that for another keynote. But in this quest is when I started to seek for several different opinions from different oncologists. And I had the amazing opportunity to meet with 2 phenomenal oncologists within the same week. And although they pretty much suggested the same type of treatment plan, I want to share with you what made the biggest difference for me. So I met with the first oncologist, and he walked into the room and jumped on his computer and started to look at my file immediately. But what he didn't know is that I knew that one of his patients was actually diagnosed with stage 4 triple-negative cancer, breast cancer, and she was now in remission after 5 years. So I was like, I want to hear all about it. And as I started mentioning it to him, he cut me off before I could finish, and he was like, oh yes, you must have read that online. That was just a fluke. And then he went on to mention that indeed this disease is incurable and that there are many treatments that could prolong my life, but I'm speaking like this because he was speaking like this in a very negative, morbid, scary tone. So I thanked him for his time, and I left the hospital, through those automatic sliding doors, and despite it being this bright, beautiful summer day, I saw nothing but darkness. I went home, got into my bed, covered my head with the sheets, and started replaying every single word he said in my mind. His words became my reality, and because our thoughts become our reality, I was back into that dark hole. Luckily, I had the second appointment with the second oncologist. And when I met him, he walked into the room and shook my hand and then took the time to acknowledge my fathers, who decided to come with me this time. And then he suggested, as I mentioned, the same type of treatment plans, but probably in a different order. But then when I had asked him if he had any patients who were doing really well on these treatments, he took the time to sit down in front of me, look me in the eyes, and say, Nalie, you remind me of this one patient that I had who's about your age, who came to me with a very similar story, and she did really well on these treatments, so much that her dream was to have a baby. And then her sister was willing to be her surrogate. But there was not that many people who supported her decision, having terminal breast cancer and all. But he was like, who am I to tell her what to do with her life? So I supported her decision, and fast forward to today, her twins are now 5 years old, and she's doing amazing. And then he gave me a little bonus story about a man in palliative care who went on treatments and then even got out of palliative care, and he's doing amazing and fantastic today. That same day, I left the hospital through similar sliding doors. And although it was a gray, rainy day, I saw nothing but light. I got home and resumed my regular activities of yoga in the morning, writing in the afternoon, and a romantic date with my boyfriend at night. But those stories did make me feel good, but what really, really uplifted me was seeing the look on my dad's face, that spark of hope that his baby girl was going to be just fine. This oncologist did not offer me a miracle cure. He didn't even say necessarily that these treatments would work on me, but he gave me stories about people for whom it did. And that was enough to allow me to move on with my life. This oncologist is now my doctor today, and things have been pretty good. Stable, little regression here and there, but stable. But the point of me telling these stories is because I want you to know that the words that you use with your patients are just as powerful as the treatments you prescribe. This is how you can make a difference between us not only just surviving, but thriving through our diagnosis, by giving us a chance to believe. By show of hands, who here has a patient with stage 4 cancer or knows of a patient with stage 4 cancer who's doing well today? Wow. These are the stories you need to tell. These are the stories that patients need to hear. This is the story that I wish I heard upon my diagnosis. These are the stories that give us the best quality of life, which is what you guys want when it comes to MBC, right? These are the stories that allow for true healing to happen, for miracles to unfold. And by miracles, I don't necessarily mean one treatment plan and then clear scans. What I mean is Brittany Beadle finding new love and going on road trips with her boyfriend. It's Jen who travels the world. It's Becky who has twins. It's Stephanie who just celebrated her 40th birthday. It's Faith Walker who sings her songs on stage. It's Erin who celebrated her son's 21st birthday when she didn't even think she'd see his first. It's me standing with you here today, coming to you from Montreal, Canada, all the way to Miami, Florida, despite all of us still living with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. I get to share these stories every day on social media. My podcast, Thriver Talks, co-hosted by Stephanie, who was last year's keynote speaker, thriving with MBC for 9 years now. Together, we are co-authoring the book, The Thriver's Guide, coming out soon, which is all about how to heal and live your best life beyond cancer. Because guess what? It's possible. Patty Dafis said that there's no such thing as false hope, just the absence of it. So I encourage you to share these stories. All you need is one. And if you don't have one, use mine, because I am not giving up. And on behalf of all women affected by breast cancer, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you.
I think that there's such a powerful message in this antique idea that there's no such thing as a cure.
Yeah.
I think there's such a powerful message in the maintenance of hope. And I think our audience heard it loud and clear.